it's time to review headlines from today's newspapers. Steve, I'll hand over to you for the honors.
All right, thank you, Adefemi. We start, of course, as always, with this day, Saturday, where we have the lead story. APC holds presidential primary May 30 and 31. Governorship May 23. Sale of forms opens April 22nd. I think this is an important piece of information.
Yes.
You recall that we mentioned it to our first guest, Bush Alebiosu, who is also running to go back to the House of Reps.
Absolutely.
So this is a major news item for anybody who is interested in running on the platform of absolutely. PDP has started selling their own forms, expression of interest, and nomination, forms. So APC is saying that May 30, 31st. Because this has to be done by that date.
Yes.
Because by the new Electoral Act, 3rd of June, you have to submit your the list of candidates to INEC. And I think the way that this has been spaced makes a lot of sense. What is interesting, though, you find it in the rider to the story. NWC meets next Tuesday. Emergency NEC meeting holds next Wednesday to ratify timetable and schedule of activities for primary. So it shows that the new NWC that the convention elected, they're up and doing.
They are.
The timetable actually leaked, I think sometimes last week, and the Secretariat denied it. But then this day is giving us this leading story to say that this is what will happen, and we believe that this is what will happen. So everybody can now, by 22nd, when the forms will start selling, it's no longer about making your declaration, or you are still consulting. We want to, it's by that time that we will know who's actually running. And then on the 30th and 31st for the presidential, we'll know that, okay, these are the front liners. What sort of primaries are they going to have? Consensus, which is, in the law, by the way, direct or indirect primary. So it will be an interesting May.
It will be, won't it?
It will be an interesting May because you will have picked your forms, I believe, in April.
Yes.
PDP is still extending its own because
you have time.
The parties will make billions from sale of forms, But then we do not know if, like APC had during the convention, if they opt for consensus and they ask you to step down for the candidate, will they return your money, that you use? And it's not cheap, by the way. I think presidential is about 30 million. And is it 30 or 40 million?
Something like that. I remember a few weeks, if not months ago, you and OG breaking that news to me, and I just thought, goodness gracious, so my 20,000 naira would get me a form.
Your 20,000 naira for a form?
Gosh.
No, he won't even give you a password to open the website. Okay, so on top of that, the lead story, World Bank in latest Africa's Pulse project 2.7% growth for Nigeria in 2022. That's from World Bank's latest Africa's Pulse. That is not that may not be the best of projections, but let's see what we have there. On the region's three largest economies, Angola, Nigeria, and South Africa, only Nigeria is projected to enjoy a fairly good growth in 2022. So that's not bad.
No,
that's not bad. And the reported growth in South Africa is expected to decline by 2.8 percentage points in 2022, dragged by persistent structural constraints.
Indeed.
I think this sort of analysis is important so that people don't think that when there are issues, it comes down to strictly the performance of those who are in power. There are, a lot of other vagaries, globally speaking, that, account for how your economy performs. And I think that this projection at 2.7 for this year, in comparison to other African countries, may not be too bad. On top of the masthead, Abubakar Umar to Buhari, suspend census, focus on security. That's a story on page 10. And I think that aligns with your thought. Was it you or Haji?
At the
beginning. You didn't want the census before the election. Was that what you said?
OG, was it? I wanted a census before the election because I believe that it makes sense to know how many people are in the country. Whereas, if I'm not mistaken, OG thought that it wasn't a priority because of the security situation. How are you going to count the people? The practicalities of it was the issue. I think
that the census is necessary.
Absolutely.
Because if you can conduct elections, I mean, we had elections in Borno in 2019, and we will have this year. So if you can, there will be pockets of issues like the very unfortunate incident that happened in Imo, State, but we have an idea of, these things so that the authorities know what to tackle. But so my point on a general note is that if we're able to conduct elections in the country, we should be able to count ourselves. And just like KK said last Sunday, something that he attributed to the chairman of Arise Group, and this day, we are struggling with figures. We're just not able to. It's
a huge data problem.
It is data. We don't know how many we are. We don't know how much of fuel we consume. We just don't. We are just struggling with data. So this is one major area that we can make an improvement. And the president, having voted, released money for the exercise next April, I think that they should just proceed with it. Maybe the census will even give us an indication of the outcome of the election results a month, earlier, because the elections will be in February and March. So if we have census in April, let's compare and see if truly what they declared during the elections is reflective of what the census is saying. Okay.
Perfect opportunity.
Absolutely. So on the window, still on this day, on Saturday, 20 days after, 68 abducted train passengers languish in dungeon of terrorists. Families restless, confused. With the rider, relatives will resist resumption of train services without rescuing our loved ones. What can we say other than to continue to sympathize with the families and those who are still in captivity, who are still in the dungeon, as the headline puts it, of the terrorists, and to continue to urge the government and the authorities not to relent. It's mind-boggling that so many people, how many now? 20 days after, 68 passengers still languishing. This is not the best. This is not what the giant of Africa should be known for.
At all. At all. Each and every one of them. Just heartbreaking to hear that there's a pregnant woman among them as well. I mean, goodness gracious.
That's so sad. Last but not the least, the story on page 6, which is promoted on cover, 2023, Kingsmen organize walk for Shibajo in Ikene. The vice president has made his declaration.
Yes.
His people have confirmed that he's no longer, his membership of the party is no longer in Lagos, but in his home town and home state of Ogun State.
Yes.
So I think that that's an important thing. We shouldn't leave the cover of this day without drawing attention, of course, to the cover picture, Ogun's industrial development agenda. And we see here the governor of Ogun State, Prince Dakwa Abiodun, with the founder and chief executive officer, Arise Integrated Industrial Platform, UAE, Gagan Gupta. I think that was displaying the memorandum of understanding for a $400 million industrial development partnership agreement signed by both parties at the governor's office in Okemoson in Abeokuta yesterday. I think the governor is not, doing badly at all. He's, making a case for his re-election on the one hand, but of course saying that don't just look at me as somebody who wants a second time. Look at what I've done and what I am doing.
Absolutely.
So that's a good one there. Let it translate to something beneficial to the good people of Ogun State.
Absolutely.
We move to The Guardian.
Okay. And let's start with the picture headline story, because that's quite captivating.
Wow.
What we do have is a dramatic performance, as is written on the cover of The Guardian on Saturday. They used the word dramatic. Performance representing the crucifixion. Goodness. The crucifixion of Jesus Christ by members of St. Dominic Catholic Church over in Yaba yesterday. This is, of course, the Easter weekend.
That's right.
Yesterday being Good Friday. Tomorrow being Easter Sunday.
Right.
So it's definitely a time of reflection and, rebirth and renewal. It's an opportunity for everybody to come together and look at not so much the religious aspect of Easter, but look at what it represents. Again, a rebirth, another chance to start life again, start life afresh. So we wish a happy Easter to everybody.
Happy Easter to everybody.
Easter. So these are the Romans? These are the Romans. These are the Romans. I was confused for a second. And then I realized, of course, these are the Romans leading him to the crucifixion. All righty. Well, the headline story there, it reads as anxiety as consensus crisis rocks the APC and the PDP ahead of 2023. And we were saying that, I mean... It's not too far away now. I mean, we don't need to speculate for much longer.
Anymore.
So we'll see.
It's actually the two parties that are, facing this. If you notice, a number of the leading candidates in PDP have been talking consensus. Former Senate President and former Governor of Kwara State, Dr. Bukola Saraki. Governor of Sokoto State, Tambuwa. And I think one other gentleman have been saying, let's have a consensus. Let's present somebody that can face whoever the APC chooses. Governor Wike does not want consensus. He wants a primary election, and he says, give me the ticket, so that because I'm a fighter, I can fight. The front runner, former Vice President Atiku Abubakar, says, I am willing to drop my ambition if the party zones the ticket to Southeast, which Wike does not want, and which I think that the Sarakis...
Wike doesn't want because that would push him out.
It push him
being
out totally.
South-South.
It push him out totally. He's South-South. And the argument will be that former President Jonathan was from the South-South, and he had his 5.5 years as president and then as vice president. He says he doesn't want to be VP to anybody. He wants to
be
the
candidate. So.
Wike says so. But we'll see how it goes. APC is also, having his own battle on who will be the candidate. Again, when we know those who have picked the forms, as we know those of the PDP, then we can see where the discussion will lead to.
Delicious times ahead, I have to say.
Absolutely delicious political times.
Well, on the bottom left corner of The Guardian, there's some unfortunate news. Veteran saxophonist Orlando Julius has died, aged 79.
Yes, it passed on, unfortunately, on Wednesday. He had lived in Ghana for a long time with his African-American wife, the lovely Latoya, Orlando Julius Ekemode. It was one of the, the greatest, if you like, that we can claim that we have in Afro high life, music in Nigeria. He was well celebrated, spent a good chunk of his time in America, produced, great music, and he played till his very last. It's unfortunate that that class of creators, musicians is depleting, rapidly. Fela left, Victor Waifo is no more, and now Orlando Julius has gone to meet them. But of course, no great artist dies. Their work, their legacy lives on, I think we should quickly move to Vanguard because we've got only about a minute. And the story, the lead story there, Osinachi, husband spat on her, poured water on her while asleep, flogged her and children. Friends also revealed 3 reasons she didn't quit the marriage. We discussed this. It's just so sad. We will not sit in judgment until the police, come up with their findings. But what is important is to say that the truth must be established and justice must be served. I do not think that this woman deserves to die.
Absolutely not. And one thing I forgot to say, because we were being rushed to start our guest interviews at the beginning of the show, was that, again, on the topic of responsibility and using authority in the correct way, you'll remember, I think it was last year, if not 2020, there was a journalist who worked at a Nigerian network. In, I think it was a Middle Belt state, I could be wrong, who had beaten his wife mercilessly. The woman left her husband only for the state governor and his wife to intervene in that matter and reconcile the couple. And that's just another example of people abusing authority and like you're positioned to give advice, that is not the correct thing to do, because you put people in constant danger. You can only imagine, and we don't know the facts as it pertains to Osinachi, but you can imagine that perhaps had she voiced out and somebody told her to forgive her husband, being a Christian, she would have done so, and only for this to happen this way. It's just very sad.
You're right, it's so sad. I mean, a number of other interesting stories, you know, on the cover of Vanguard, entertainment ones and political ones. One stands out here. Tinubu's action on Ambode haunts his campaign, which is a story that you'll find on page 7 of the paper. You know, we'll see how it goes, but we wish everybody the best of time.